So how much must you actually sacrifice to become a successful musician? Do you have to sacrifice your finances by putting effort into underpaid gigs? Do you have to sacrifice your sense of self-worth by making stupid TikToks and Reels and other forms of entertainment to even get exposure? Do you need to sacrifice your sanity by breaking up with band after band after band? And is it all worth it? In this video, we will be breaking down the sacrifices that you have to make in order to make it as a successful artist. And we'll be splitting this into 6 areas of life: emotional, social, mental, financial, physical, and spiritual. Let's dive into it. There's a lot of uncertainty that comes with committing to a music career, and there's so much to figure out in today's climate. With all this, it can feel very overwhelming, and this takes an emotional toll. We go into the sacrifice of the toll that weighs on you when you start comparing yourself to others, when you get discouraged by putting in constant effort and not getting the results that you hoped for, or that you were trained to believe would come very easily in such a fast-paced social media environment, where all you see is these winners and 22-year-old millionaires that made it overnight. Well, in reality, life just takes a little longer than that. And especially if you want to create a foundation of trust with your audience and get them to actually believe in your music and actually resonate with it, it will just take more time. Managing the emotions that come with the expectation versus the reality can be quite challenging. On top of that, you have to have thick skin. We endure a lot of criticism as artists, especially if you decide to put your stuff out there, right? And this is a hurdle in and of itself, where a lot of artists are making amazing things or have the potential to create amazing art, but are afraid to put it out there because they are afraid of criticism. We have to put effort into training ourselves emotionally to endure that criticism and to actually see what it's trying to tell us, because often it's not just them trying to peg us down and make us feel shitty about ourselves. Usually they're actually communicating a need, and we need to teach ourselves to listen to our audience and pick out what that need is that they're trying to communicate with us, albeit sometimes in a quite mean way. But this takes effort. It takes effort to train ourselves emotionally. And this is one of the sacrifices that you have to make. You have to invest time into your emotional well-being and emotional development to actually deal with this. This isn't easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And even though there's a lot of artists out there or want to be artists, the amount of successful artists are way lower than the amount of aspiring artists. Developing thick skin is a big portion of getting to that level, because you have to endure this long term. Music, an activity that was originally meant to connect us with others, nowadays is often quite a lonesome profession, especially if you're a composing and producing artist and you have your own little home studio where you can do everything yourself. It can be quite isolating. And this is a sacrifice that you make, where sometimes you have to say no to some social activities that would be fun because you have a deadline that you set for yourself, or that somebody else set for you for your music to go out, or there's a specific goal that you want to reach in your career as a musician, and you have to prioritize that. You're sacrificing these social activities for your long-term music goals, and this can be tough. On top of that, we have the classic example of, maybe you've seen the movie Whiplash, where sometimes you have to say no to certain relationships because you just know that it will take away from the time you can put into your music. I'm like this. I love, and I love giving myself in abundance to whatever person I'm in a relationship with. But I know that I cannot do that and at the same time put in the amount of hours that I want to put into my music career. So there's a sacrifice there that I have to make, where in the short term, I might not have the relationship that I want, but in the long term, I can fulfill my music goals. And then once achieved, the whole romance part of my life, I can venture into that without having the thought of these unaccomplished goals weighing me down. So this is definitely a balance to strike, and therefore also a sacrifice to make. And on top of that, that's not the only relationships that might have to be sacrificed. Friends that don't support you, or rather, friends that don't support your music career, you don't want to hang out with them. Like, they'll just hold you back. Even though they might be great people, and even though they might not mean harm, they genuinely think that a music career is futile and you're wasting your life. If you are set on that music career and they are always trying to hold you back, you have to sacrifice that relationship, or at least set some boundaries there so that they don't impact your drive and your goals and your career as a musician. And this can be really tough. Despite the stereotypes of musicians being very hedonistic and impulsive, a lot of musicians, especially at a professional level, are actually quite disciplined. And they have to be, because they have to be able to mentally prepare for and cope with very demanding schedules, such as when they're on tour or when there's a deadline coming up for a release. Oftentimes, especially at earlier stages, we're practicing our craft while at the same time managing a full-time or part-time job. And that means that you might have to make your art in the evening hours. Like when other people might be binge watching Netflix, you have to sit there and discipline yourself to actually work on the projects that you said you would finish. We're all human, and sometimes it's very enticing and tempting to spend your evening just vegging out, watching some nice show, eating some nice snacks, and like just chilling. But this might be the only time you have to work on your music or your art. And it would be a shame if you forfeit that time and waste it on something that's not moving you towards that goal that you have. And then the next day or within a few weeks, you'll feel bad about yourself because of the time that you spent on the wrong things. So this takes mental discipline, and developing this discipline takes time, takes effort, and that's another sacrifice that you have to make. On top of that, you have to train yourself to consistently make content, consistently make music, to learn the required skills, to level up in your career. And you have to learn how to finish projects. A lot of creatives, we love starting things because we got all these ideas, but then we have to teach ourselves to finish them, because finishing projects, personally for me, is way harder than starting them. Look, it takes time to build a brand. It takes time to learn a skill, but it also takes money. You have to oftentimes, especially if you want to fast track this process, pay for certain education to learn certain skills in the arts. You have to find teachers or mentors or coaches, and usually these come with a fee. With music specifically, there's a lot of cost up front, especially if you're trying to do this all by yourself, or even if you're doing it with other people, because we have the privilege of being able to build our own home studio, but still it costs thousands of dollars or euros or whatever unit you want to use to actually build this. You don't get a return on that right away. It takes years to actually get a return on that. So there's this financial sacrifice that you have to make to actually be able to make music, especially if you want it to be at a decent or even professional level. Not to mention that a lot of instruments, especially if you want good sounding instruments, and this is so crucial because you want your source material to sound good, they cost money. And sometimes they might cost quite a lot of money. And then there's also this eagerness in many of us to spend a lot of money on equipment that might not even fix our issue, because a lot of the times we just need to progress in our skill instead. There's no denying that the more time you put into something, the more you will get out of it, and the bigger your chance of success. However, we're not robots, we're human beings. We need sleep, we need rest, and we need to take care of our bodies, this vessel that allows us to even make art in the first place. And the sacrifices here include late nights staying up to finish projects, cranking into the deep hours of the night because you have a deadline tomorrow set, late nights producing or composing or working on your projects, because a lot of the times during the day you might have a job and you have to find the time or make the time, therein sacrificing sleep as well to work on these projects, to finish them. This often comes paired with stimulants like caffeine, right? And I love myself a good coffee, but Sometimes it's not the best for you to down a couple of Red Bulls and work late into the night. Besides, often we're sitting a lot, especially if we're producing our own music and mixing it. Oftentimes it's also activity that could be spent on other things such as sports, but we have to make sacrifices here to be able to work as much as we want to, or sometimes as much as we have to, in order to achieve our goals. There's definitely a balance to strike here, and I'm a big proponent of taking good care of your body, because I feel that creative energy comes from the body, and the healthier your body is, the more fit you are, the more capable you are of producing and working and creating. I actually got back from the gym just like 2 hours ago. I had dinner and now I'm filming this. And without working out, I don't think I would be able to work on my music as much as I can right now, because it gives me the energy that it requires. And there's these wonderful anecdotes of creatives or artists or musicians using drugs like LSD or marijuana to stimulate their minds and to be more creative. But I believe that that is absolute horseshit, because all the creative energy and thought that you need is really within your body, and you just need to unlock it. And one thing that allows it to be tapped into is taking great care of your body. This is a more nuanced one. For a lot of us, music and expressing ourselves through music is a very therapeutic kind of act to be engaged in. It's a way to cope and or regulate our emotions. But one thing you might have noticed is that when you start creating art and advertising it and exposing it to the world, well, there certainly is this feeling that you should change it in order to appeal to a larger audience. This can weigh on you, because it sometimes feels like you have to alter your art to the point that it no longer like speaks to your soul, right? And there's a delicate balance to strike here, where you want your art to still be as pure as possible, but then when you appeal to your audiences and you cater it to them, you cannot lose that soul. I've run into this quite a lot, where I try to appeal to an audience or to try a new way of increasing my exposure, and then running into that barrier of, but now it doesn't feel like me anymore. Like there's a balance between connection to the soul, to appealing to an audience, and then to your own ego. And I spoke about this in my previous video. Feel free to check that out to go more in depth into how the ego holds you back from appealing to audiences. But it's worth noting how sometimes there might grow a distance between your soul and your music as you cater to audiences. And this is a whole topic by itself, and I'd love to go into this another time. But I hope you can see what I'm trying to get at here. Maybe if you experienced it yourself, you already know what I'm talking about. It's kind of difficult to put into words. It's mainly about like sacrificing or altering your music for listeners, for consumers, secondary activities that you have to do in order to advertise your music that don't feel natural to you, or you feel like devalue the connection that you have with your own music, or losing your sense of self while figuring out a content strategy where, again, you have to like do some stupid TikToks in order to actually get exposure. I think this is also why you see a lot of people saying, I'm not gonna do music as a career anymore, I just want it to be a hobby. Because then they can indulge fully into that connection between their soul and their music, and the expression and self-actualization that they find in that. Ideally, you want to find a balance where you can still have that self-actualization and at the same time hit the audience in the way that you want to impact them. So far, we framed this all as sacrifice, but this is quite a glass half empty approach. Instead, how about we turn it a little more hopeful? Something related to sacrifice is investment. Isn't investment also inherently sacrificial? We prioritize long-term success over short-term gain when we're investing. And in order to make this music career thing a sustainable lifestyle, we have to maintain a positive mindset. So I would encourage you to also reframe it as investment. And this is something that I'm working on myself, in keeping this positive mindset through it all. But then again, sacrifice, the word sacrifice, it holds a certain weight to it. And you can definitely leverage that to motivate you to actually put in the work, because knowing what you have sacrificed to get here can be an incredible motivator to keep on going, because you don't want it all to be for naught. Whatever you choose to name it, this journey is not without effort. Do you think it is all worth it? Let me know down below. Thank you for watching. Sacrifice. The act of giving up something valued for the sake of something considered to have higher value or purpose. Song of the week. This week we have got Stereo Driver by Q. And definitely check out the album that is on. It's called Soul Presents. I remember when this album came out, I listened to it a couple of times, just like front to back, and it's a really nice journey. Like, it's actually one of those albums that tells a story, so check it out. But this song by itself is also great. Just have a listen and make your own judgment. But it's a wonderful, soulful song with a little bit of a indie pop vibe. That's the song of the week.